Local musician Amy Blanding joins us in CFUR Studios today in conversation concerning the upcoming release of her new single on January 31st. This is more than just a digital signal for your entertainment, although that may be a side effect. Sunbirds is a protest song designed to bring awareness to the plight of all those affected by the ongoing incursion of Israeli forces in Gaza. Amy, are you able to walk us through your journey with this song as much as you're comfortable sharing with us, up to the point of ultimately deciding to indeed release this track, Sunbirds? You've gone through an awful lot, especially since it was initially performed April of last year, 2024.
Yeah, thank you. So April of last year, I was contracted to perform a concert with a community group, the Cantata Singers, the Prince George Cantata Singers. And this was a concert that we had planned for a very long time. I was excited about it. I sang in cantata when I was first living in Prince George. And it was a night featuring me as a musician and then the choir itself performing some of their songs and then collaborating together. And about 10 days before the concert was to happen, I received an email from a member of the board of the Cantata Singers claiming that they had received a copy of my set list in advance. That's a rare occurrence for musicians. You'll probably see most musicians scribbling their set list about 5 minutes before they go on stage on a napkin or something. But I had given it to the folks at the Performance Center in order that they might curate the lighting design for the show. And because of that, I had written notes on the set list claiming what the songs were about so that they could set the mood appropriately. A couple of my songs mentioned things about the political nature of my work. In fact, the majority of my set and the majority of my music has a political nature. And one of the songs was Sunbirds, and it was about the genocide in Palestine. And I had actually not even yet finished writing the song when I included it on the set list. Because of that song, the Board of Cantata requested that I not perform the song because it was, in their opinion, contentious and divisive. And then they requested that I sit with the artistic director to thoroughly review the contents of my entire set list to ensure that it was in alignment with their mission as an organization. I felt it was disrespectful and really challenging to my integrity as a musician. My music and my work is very well known in this community. I've been working with community members as a musician and an activist for over a decade in Claytley territory. So it was very surprising, but I chose to just come back to the contract that had been delivered and said that we would perform the set list as it was. And ultimately they were okay with that. So I performed the set list with my band, Reckless Burning, that night. It was a beautiful night. It was a full crowd. We had an amazing show. And I performed Sunbirds for the first time, solo. Somebody recorded me singing the song. It's a very grainy video. And later that day, I believe that night or the next day, I posted on my personal Instagram and Facebook the recording of the video and included statements about my understanding at the time of the ongoing genocide in Palestine. I called out the government of Canada, and it called out all of us for our complicity in turning a blind eye to the abhorrent suffering that we are watching occur on a daily basis, on our phones, on the news, watching the suffering of the Indigenous people of Palestine. I should also mention that at the dress rehearsal for the show, I wore a shirt that had been purchased as a fundraiser for the organization Wear the Peace. And they provide and have provided for years humanitarian aid to Gaza. So by purchasing the shirt, I was sending a small contribution to medical aid and assistance to Gaza through Wear the Peace. And they're an amazing organization. And I have such deep respect for the work that they do. The shirt itself showed an outline of the state of occupied Palestine and Israel, and it was filled in with a watermelon. Anyone who has been not living under a rock will know that the watermelon is a symbol of solidarity with the people of Palestine and for the struggle of the Palestinian people to live lives free from oppression. So I was proud to wear that shirt, and I did wear it deliberately. After that, a few weeks later, I was called into a meeting with the HR vice president at Northern Health. I was an employee of Northern Health. I was the director of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. And I was ultimately told that members of the Prince George community, I have since discovered Zionist members of the Prince George community, wrote a letter to Northern Health, extremely defamatory letter that was categorically false, claiming that my actions in singing the song Sunbirds and wearing the watermelon shirt ultimately meant that I was calling for the erasure of the state of Israel, that I was bigoted, that it meant I was pro-Hamas, that I was unable to work with minorities. It's difficult to talk about. The letter is public, on public record, but it is very challenging, and it's consistent with the Zionist rhetoric that we've heard since 1972, basically saying that anyone who is pro-Palestinian is anti-Semitic, which is categorically untrue. Receiving the letter was very difficult, and reading it in front of the VP of Human Resources was also very difficult. But the decision of the organization ultimately was to remove me from my role in response to the fact that these few community members now felt, quote, unsafe accessing healthcare services in the North, having me in a senior leadership position like that. There are some complexities and other pieces to the situation as it played out. And again, this is all public record. But ultimately, I was told that I needed to publish a pre-written apology to the entire Jewish community of the North on my personal social media, and also to articulate how I intended to rehabilitate myself in order that folks would feel safe again having me in the role of Director, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. When I chose not to say yes or no to that ultimatum, I never actually said that I would not post that. I requested time and space to think about my response. I was told that that was considered a refusal, and I was removed from my role. So in May of 2024, I stopped working for Northern Health and ultimately left the organization, I guess, officially in the second week of June. So I have been out of work since June of 2024. And my decision at the time was also to seek legal action. So I have filed 2 lawsuits, one against Northern Health for wrongful dismissal, for defamation, injury, and damages, and a violation of my charter rights, my and all of our right to freedom of expression. And I've also filed a lawsuit against the community members who wrote the original defamatory letter. We will be going to trial. I had attempted to settle with Northern Health, and they did not choose to settle with me because they wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, basically forcing me to not speak out about this situation, about what happened to me, and the harms that I and others suffered and continue to suffer at that organization that I feel are abhorrent. And I know a lot of folks have tried in the past to speak out and have been silenced, and my privilege affords me the opportunity and the responsibility to say something. So I did, and I am. And I should also say that my supervisor at Northern Health, Vashabadi Cook, who was the executive director for workforce sustainability, quality, and innovation at Northern Health, and an exemplary employee and leader, chose to resign in protest to what happened to me. which also speaks volumes about the situation that I and he and others felt at Northern Health. So that's been an ongoing battle. We continue to battle and we continue to speak out, not just about what happened to me with Northern Health, but also about the fact that this is another example of silencing folks who are speaking out about the genocide, about having an unbelievable bias and blind spot when it comes to media representation and reporting on the genocide and the subsequent violence that has occurred in the region. We know that big business is bought by Israeli businesses, partners, the government. It's all complicit. So this has been a really fascinating journey for me. And then ultimately the decision came to record the song Sunbirds. I actually didn't have the intention to record it anytime soon, but part of my concern with everything that's gone down has been that we're distracted from the real problem. The fact that as we speak, there are babies dying in Gaza. They're freezing to death because they have nowhere to live. And there are no longer medical supplies crossing the border into Palestine. It hasn't stopped, and there's no end in sight. And we can't let this fall off of our radar or fall off of the newsreel. We have to keep it front and center, and we have to do everything that we can to boycott and divest and raise money and raise awareness about the most awful human rights violation that we have ever witnessed. So the release of Sunbirds will coincide with a fundraiser for Wear the Peace. So every download, every purchase of the song Sunbirds that anyone makes on my Bandcamp, all of the money will go directly to Wear the Peace so that they can distribute the funds to folks in Gaza who need it. And I trust the organization. I've spoken with one of their lead organizers. He's very excited and grateful, and it's kind of a full circle moment to be releasing this song and raising money for folks who put out the shirt that got me in trouble in the first place.
Thank you for recounting and exploring that with us, Amy. It's remarkable that through all this confusion and distraction that you were able to find focus again to pursue the release of this track.
Yeah.
Which was the original thing. Circling back to it finally after several months and all that's happened to you, there is a positive side or a bright side we can still pursue. Thanks for walking through that difficult journey with us. So this song has obviously changed your life in ways you likely never would have predicted. I'm going to imagine that was probably not in your wildest dreams.
Nope.
What was your original intent when articulating this piece? You did touch on that. Has that intention changed or evolved as you've gone through, so many challenges since initially performing that track?
It is interesting. I wrote Sunbirds, and I write a lot of my music because I'm compelled to say something. I feel often the way I think a lot of people feel when they're hit with these huge things that they just can't understand, or that they feel like they need to talk about or do something about, and they don't know where to put that energy, or they don't necessarily have an outlet. I'm a musician and an artist, and I've chosen in that place to use that platform that I've developed and I've been given, and that I'm privileged to have, to share things and hopefully share them in a way that connects with people on an emotional level, such that they never think about these things the same way again, and that they feel compelled to talk to their community about, or to make a difference or make a change. And it's also just like, I'm compelled to do it. I have to say something. I have to do something. And so the songs often write themselves in a way, and you'll see that with most of my music and a lot of the new music that's been coming out that I've been performing over the past couple of years that will get recorded later this year on a new album. I tell stories that need to be told, and I think I give voice to folks who are silenced, often marginalized voices that we don't give space to. Again, I consider it my responsibility to use the stage that I have to share those stories and to make space for those voices. Sunbirds is the same. Since October of 2023, I haven't been able to sleep very well because I'm haunted by images of mothers like myself holding babies the same age as my little boy, wrapped in white shrouds, wailing, and like have a visceral psychological reaction to these images. I can't not talk about them, and I can't not express them through my art. That was always what Sunbirds was for me an opportunity to express my rage, but also to sing about a place that, from what I've read and what I've seen and what I've heard from Palestinian friends, is such a beautiful land. And it's filled with beautiful people, olive trees and music and art of its very own, and stories of people walking for miles on their own land. And I want to articulate the beauty and the pain that we're seeing. And so, yeah, that was always what Sunbirds was. And then it, of course, took on a life of its own. And I don't think that's changed too much. My intention now with the song, I think, is like it's definitely it's become sort of a touchstone for me and is probably the most important song I've ever written. And that's okay. I think art is necessary in times like this. It's important for us to have protest songs that we can grab onto, and, you know, it lights the way through the movement towards collective liberation. So if I can contribute in some small way to that, I'll feel really grateful. And if we can raise some money with the song as well, that will be just the best thing ever.
The amount of rigor that's been attributed to this song is fairly above average in comparison to your typical track.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, it's really nothing new for you to be exploring, you know, a theme that's political in nature, or that has to do with social justice or human suffering, or really just observing the world around us.
Yeah, exactly.
As this goes out into the world, you have touched on this, but is there a particular aspect that you're hoping that people take from it beyond awareness of this issue?
I think, like I said before, my real concern, and you obviously see this on a daily basis, is that these massive issues that have such an impact on humanity and an impact on all of us just fall off the news cycle and are never heard from again. And we're a product of our culture and our society that looks for that instant fix or something new to pay attention to. And the last thing that I want is for us to forget about Palestine, not just for the people who are still dying and for the healthcare workers who are still fighting for people's lives in Gaza, and not just for Syria and Lebanon and the other countries that are now dealing with this barrage of just crazy violence. It's not just for that, and that would be enough, but also because the liberation of Palestine is inextricably linked to our collective liberation. We are watching it unfold, but we are a part of it. And I think that this is an unprecedented time. And if we can keep the story going, those of us in the West and those of us with privilege, if we can keep the story going and look at it in a new way and bring humanity to it, we are forcing change. It's happening. I mean, Starbucks is losing money because people are boycotting because of their participation in funding the genocide. And the global majority is making change. And we have to keep going with that. We can't let these short sound bites and little tiny TikToks distract us from the fact that we can actually make a difference here, and that we can educate towards collective liberation, and we can free ourselves and the indigenous people from Turtle Island to Palestine from oppression. We actually have the capacity to do that. And so that seems like really grandiose, But what my job is like, what is my part? What is one thing that I can do? What is one thing that everybody can do to make sure that this is fresh and it stays there and it's raw and it's like top of the news cycle, top of mind, that you don't stop talking about Palestine, you don't stop talking about everything that it's connected to, and this can help do that. Every time you listen to Sunbirds, maybe you'll think about that. The final line of the song is, you can censor every song, but we rise up together, one stage, one voice, till all of us are free. Like, that is a possible place to arrive at, and it's not Pollyanna, it's like hope driven by action. And so this is the one thing that I'm doing now, and you can download the song and contribute to that momentum. And if everyone contributes to all the little things across the globe, like, we will see change. And it won't be the last thing that I do, of course, but right now in this moment, this is in my control and I have the capacity to do that. And I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amy. In part, what you just expressed as well is, here we are in Prince George, in the central interior of British Columbia, a world away from what's happening in Gaza. But we do have a role to play, and there's actually quite a bit we have in common across the globe with people we've never met.
Yeah.
The bits and pieces of things we can do are happening right now with songs like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
By and large, no work of art is created in a vacuum. Who are some partners or key collaborators who've helped you along this journey, both the creation of this track and coming to the conclusion that you've got to release this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to say thank you and express gratitude for these folks, because it absolutely would not have been possible, first and foremost, without my band, Reckless Burning. So the concert that we did back in April was actually our very first performance together as a band. And Reckless Burning is Tori Barham, Melissa Walker, Britt Meyerhofer, and Genevieve Tucker. And that show was our first time playing together as a band. It's a relatively new project. They were present for all of the discussion and the emails and everything that came down. And I told them if in any way they weren't comfortable with me taking this stance, with me choosing to play Sunbirds and choosing to go on stage and ultimately do what I continued to do in the months that followed, that I was totally okay with that, and I completely respected their decision. And there was no question from any of them, we got your back. You do what you need to do. We're here. And they were. They stood behind me on the stage. They played with me that night. And then we have since played Sunbirds and all of our songs together as a band all summer, this fall, and we're continuing to play together. So they have absolutely been my strength and my support. And particularly when we were engaged in legal action and we couldn't talk about it to anyone, they were really my confidants. And I love them so much, and I have such deep respect for those women. And yeah, it absolutely wouldn't have been possible without them. They are on the song. They are the band on Sunbirds. We recorded it together, so you get to hear them on the track. They just did an amazing job, an incredible performance. I also have to thank Connor Pritchard of Pulp City Music, who recorded the track and produced Sunbirds. He's brilliant and kind, and he understood from the beginning what we were trying to achieve with Sunbirds, and I couldn't have done it without him, and he's such a dear friend, and I hope everybody in this city recognizes what a gem we have in Connor, so I'm grateful to him. And also Adam Harasimiak from Frost Films, who stepped into the studio with very little notice, and this is just the nature of my relationship with Adam, where we're like, let's collaborate. But I told him the story, and I asked him if he would be willing to shoot a video for the song, and he said yes. But yeah, these folks are professionals. They're artists in their own right, and they took time out of their day and just they believe in it. So yeah, I have to say thank you, particularly to those folks, because the song and the track wouldn't be what it is without them. So I have a lot of gratitude. There are a lot of other people who've been with me on this journey, but the song Sunbirds is possible because of those folks that I mentioned.
Amy, how do you feel about being in the public eye with this release right now? Are you scared? Are you nervous about perhaps the criticism that awaits you after releasing this track, January 2025?
Not anymore, to be honest. I have spent the past 8 months dealing with some really interesting responses to the choice that I made to file lawsuits against my former employer and community members to speak out. A lot of people have supported me, and a surprising amount of people have stayed silent and deliberately chosen to not speak up with me in solidarity. So I've been grappling with that for a while. I also dealt with a lot of online bullying and vitriol coming from folks, Zionist community members, folks online who had a lot of pretty abhorrent things to say about me, and other people who are connected with me or standing in solidarity with me. And I think I knew that was coming. I talked about it with my partner. I talked about it with Vash when we chose to ultimately go public, and we put out a press release and actually held a press conference in Vancouver when we filed the lawsuits. So we chose to make a big media splash about this precisely so that we would spread awareness and draw attention to the fact that folks are being targeted for speaking out about anti-Palestinian racism in the workplace, and that this concerns all of our charter rights and all of our rights to freedom of expression. So yeah, I wasn't naive in that I was going to get some pushback and some flack, but really, the majority of it has been absolutely positive and more support than not. So that's cool. And, again, I chose to be in the public eye as an artist and a musician, and any feedback, positive or negative, is helpful for the algorithm or whatever the kids say. So I'm not that worried anymore, to be honest. What do we have to be afraid of? What do I have to be afraid of? That people are going to say naughty things about me, or I'm not naive in the fact that my safety and my family's safety can be compromised by the fact that I'm speaking out about this. Heck, we have a Palestinian flag on our fence at my house. So I'm not naive in recognizing the impacts and the implications that this has had on people all over the world. But in the grand scheme of things, bring it on, because it's not enough to make me stay silent. And when you listen to Sunbirds, it's also it's a pretty tame song if you think about it. There's nothing in it that's really controversial. I guess if you hadn't known that it was about the genocide in Palestine, I don't know that you would have made that connection, and it can apply to a lot of different situations all over the world. So yeah, I don't have a lot of fear anymore, but I will also say that this has been the most difficult time of my life, and I have suffered quite a bit of psychological trauma and stress, and so has my family. I'm still unemployed, which is a huge financial hardship. And so this has impacted me in so many ways, and I would do it all over again tomorrow. So, yeah.
Considering all the challenges that you've dealt with in this, loss of employment, financial hardships, emotional burdens, do you have a message for anyone who might be currently standing up for themselves in the face of something bigger than themselves, or standing up for others, and now bearing the weight of the side effects of those choices? Is there a certain amount of grace you feel someone must carry forward with, or even a compassion with which even to reserve for those who are providing that criticism against you? Where are you finding your grit and your determination to carry forward with this?
Yeah, I think our salvation will come and does come from collective liberation. We are not going to get out of any of our problems alone. And for a culture, particularly for our Western culture that has idealized self-sufficiency and individualism, I mean, that's the capitalist mentality is like, focus on yourself, take care of yourself. If you're feeling burdened by the world, buy yourself something nice, give yourself a bubble bath, and then go to work and be a part of the machine tomorrow. The ultimate antidote to that is to come together. And it doesn't mean come together with just the people that you agree with or just the people that have the same opinions as you do or align with you politically. It means come together and just be together in the collective, and we will find our way out together. It's dialogue, it's conflict, it's like embracing conflict and knowing that that's a way that we find new paths towards liberation. I mean, the ironic thing is that I've been a part of this community for 15 years now, and I know even some of the people that wrote this malicious letter against me. I've had conversations with them. People who have subsequently spoken out against me and said things about me. None of these people actually called me up and asked for a conversation. They didn't reach out and ask, why are you doing this, or what's this perspective? Similarly, I wasn't afforded the opportunity to share my perspective or anything with the senior leadership at Northern Health. It was simply knee-jerk, cut her off, or defame her, or say things about her online, and then just move on. And I think that is such a damaging way to be in community. I'm open to dialogue. I'm open to conflict. I'm open to learning and growing and unlearning and being wrong and moving forward. And I think that is ultimately what we should be focusing on. And so what I would say to folks who are potentially finding themselves in this position of, do I speak out, or I have spoken out and I feel alone, is like, you have to find your pod, the people who will swim next to you and buoy you up. And that's a Mia Mingus term, podding. But I reached out and connected with organizers when all of this originally went down. And that's how I got connected to the Palestinian Legal Referral Service, where I got initially pro bono legal advice from folks who had expertise in this area. And that's how I found my amazing lawyer who specializes in human rights. And that's how I got my legal fees paid. And that's how I connected to Independent Jewish Voices, who set up the press conference for me. A bunch of beautiful retired folks who are just like, what can we do for you, young lady? And that's how I've met community members in Prince George who are fighting this battle in every way, shape, and form. That's how I've been connected to the Palestinian diaspora that we have here in BC. So yeah, I would just say, send the pigeon out, put out a call for help. Don't do it alone. Reach out to me, reach out to others, but don't let that fear stop you. And also recognize you have rights. That's why I'm challenging this, is legally I have rights. We have human rights. We have a human rights tribunal. We have charter rights. We have employee rights. Read up on employee case law. Understand what your rights are as an employee, particularly if you're unionized. Go unions. But you have process and policy in place to protect you. And we need to use that to our advantage, because otherwise employers, if they are certain employers, will absolutely take advantage of employees who are speaking out. And you have a right to be your authentic self in the workplace, to express yourself politically. We all have a right to freedom of expression. And, if we let things like this silence us or scare us, this is a constitutionally protected right to freedom of speech. If we don't stand up for that, then we all risk losing it. So you're not alone.
So all proceeds of the track Sunbirds go towards Wear the Peace, an organization providing immediate care needs within Palestine. We're talking food, clothing, water, shelter, transporting people to hospital, immediate care, on the ground efforts, and
as well as support to transport folks for medical emergencies and surgeries out of Gaza and then back in. All of the information about the organization can be found on wearthepeace.com.
Where can we find your song?
So it will be available on Bandcamp. So it's amyblanding.bandcamp.com. And I have to stress that you have to download the song off of Bandcamp in order for me to actually receive the funds to then donate to Wear the Peace. You can obviously go and donate to Wear the Peace yourself at any point, and I would urge anybody to do that. But if you are interested in the track, you can download it for $1 or $100 or $1,000. And any time that I get a ka-ching from Bandcamp that's related to someone downloading Sunbirds, that money will be immediately transferred to Murad from Wear the Peace.
No story is ever complete, but I feel like you've walked A to Z through this journey with me, Amy, and I thank you profoundly for sharing just so much and being so vulnerable with me today. Is there anything else that you feel it's important for the audience to know about Sunbirds or the journey that began with the conception of this track to where we are now with you releasing it this January 2025?
Yeah, I think all I need to say at this point is thank you. There's been an immeasurable amount of support from this community for me over the past 8 months. Folks that some I've never met before and that I would never have known about if they hadn't reached out to me. Everything from emails and messages of solidarity to what can I do, to letter writing campaigns, to the Minister of Health asking for change, demanding change, even folks who showed up at my house with a bundle of grocery cards. It's been overwhelming and beautiful, and I feel very, very held by this community. So I'll use this platform as an opportunity to say thank you from the depths of my soul. Thank you. And also, let's keep it going. Let Sunbirds be a catalyst for you. It's definitely been a catalyst for me. And let's see what we can do over the next year, because I'm currently unemployed, so I got a lot of time and energy.
Her journey with the track Sunbirds continues to take shape as it's being released January 31st, 2025. The song is performed by Amy Blanding alongside local group Reckless Burning. More information can be found at www.amyblanding.com.